And thank you all for being here. We usually have a clock over there, and now we have a clock over here. And I'm trying not to let it throw me off, but then it's counting seconds. Which immediately throws me into arithmetic, and I don't want to go there. But it's actually pretty appropriate for the talk today, which is called A Wing and a Prayer. Everybody's heard the phrase, a wing and a prayer. But when I come across those things which sound so juicy and meaningful, I like to find out where they came from. And that actually came from a John Wayne movie. Yep. Yeah, it was Flying Tigers, which was 1942. And there was some plane that had been shot up by the bad guys that was coming back. And Commander John Wayne said, what have we heard from that plane? And the guy tells him, yeah, it's coming in on one wing and a prayer. And that was the first time that phrase actually got used. And when you think about it, that's because coming in on a wing and a prayer has to be something that has to do with technology. 100 years ago, that was like a brand new idea of us actually being on a wing, let alone the prayer. So the technology keeps on advancing, and things keep on changing in the world around us. And we, a lot of times, are so thoroughly focused on the wings, on the technology, on the civilization, on the pieces that we've built, on the structure and the organization in our lives. And we forget about the prayer part. And that was a movie, but a lot of times when we're coming in on a wing and a prayer, it's time to stop paying attention to the wing and start paying attention to the prayer. It's about being able to set an intention to open ourselves up to a new experience and bring something new into our lives. So I had the prayer work story that I was going to share before, which I'll share now, involves my wife, Dina, who, by the way, will be here singing next week. She doesn't do that very often, but it's always fun when she is. She got called for jury duty, Montgomery County jury duty. And I had come home, and there's the jury duty note, and I said, oh, you got summoned for jury duty. Are you looking forward to that? And she gave me some kind of a sarcastic answer. She says, oh yeah, it's the best thing in the world. And we've been through this process before where some people love jury duty. They love the opportunity to go and listen to a case and involve Dave. Reverend Dave loves being on jury duty. Some people do not. Some people find it to be a complete distraction and waste of their time. But Dina wasn't telling me whether she wanted to go to jury duty or not. She was just making snippy comments. Okay. So she can go and have that experience, whatever it's going to be. And then on, I think it was Tuesday night, she complained, I just called the jury pool and I have to come in, because a lot of times you call the day before, and if you don't need to go in, then you're dismissed. And she had been hoping that she would be dismissed. And she was not. She was summoned to go to Norristown, the hub of civilization there in Montgomery County, to be in judgment of one of her peers. And I said, well, do you want to go or not? And she thought it was like a bizarre question. What do you mean? Of course not. I said, oh, well, have you prayed about it? Well, no. Would you like me to do a prayer for you? It's too late for you to get out of going at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, but apparently there's room for other possibilities. And she said, well, yes. And I did the prayer. And the prayer wasn't for her to get out of jury duty. The prayer was for her to be in exactly the right place, having exactly the right experience, and for everybody involved to be having exactly the right experience, and for the schedules and the calendars and everything else to fit together perfectly. And, of course, had to do all of the, who's going to be home to take care of the dog because she's going to be gone for the entire day, and all the little detail stuff. And by 11:30, she's texting me saying, got dismissed. It's like, of course you did. And you could have gotten out of going altogether if we'd gone from the wing to the prayer a little bit earlier. Because I prayed about jury duty, and there are people who want to go, they get to go. And people who don't want to go, they get to not go. The worst thing in the world is to have somebody who doesn't want to be on a jury panel show up and sit there in the room, because as soon as they get called in, which is what happened to her, the magical thing you do is say, it would just annoy me so much to have to waste a week or a day or whatever it is of my time to listen to this case. He's already guilty. It's like, okay, you go home now. But it's about the people who want to be there, the people who are called to serve in that way, then that's the perfect place for them to be. So the prayer is not to get out of something or to maneuver the system. It's for everybody to be in their perfect place. Well, that seems like a pretty reasonable prayer to be doing. And aren't there so many opportunities for us to do that? Where we can stop what we're doing, stop paying attention to the technology and the situation and the circumstance, and just let go of our attachment to how it's going to happen. And know that regardless of what the circumstance or the situation is, we are going to be at peace. Everything is going to be feeding everybody who's involved, and it just comes out okay. When she was 5 years old, my daughter, who is now one of the world's biggest cynics and has a great sense of humor, which is a powerful combination, if you've ever hung out with a very funny cynic. But when she was 5, she said, you know, the difference between happy people and unhappy people is that some are happy. Like, really? I mean, look at the circumstances that are surrounding people. There are people who are going through an experience in their life, and they're completely miserable about it. And there are other people who are going through exactly the same experience, and they're joyous about it. Well, what's the difference? The difference isn't the situation is the same. It's the person. It's the way that they're engaging with the situation, the way that we're reacting to it, what's going on for us. So we always get to choose. Am I going to grumble about being called for jury duty? Or am I going to go joyously to jury duty? Or am I going to say, there is a need for qualified and enthusiastic jurors, and I don't particularly think of myself as being in that category, so I'm going to set the intention that the requirement and what I'm bringing to it fit together. Which means that either I'm not going to get called for jury duty, or I'm going to have a better attitude about it, or whatever. But in any case, it's the same situation, but it's having the pieces fit together harmoniously. Like the puzzle pieces, bringing the piece to the puzzle. What a brilliant line. Beautiful. It was awesome. So we get to choose our wing or our prayer. And there's, a lot of times the technology that's available to us seems like it's going to solve everything. There's a very important day in history that's coming up later this month. 4 p.m. on October 21st, 2015. Anybody know what the date is? That was the date that the DeLorean showed up. Back to the Future 2. And I just watched a little bit of the movie yesterday because I knew it was campy and silly and all the rest of that. But the stuff that in 1989 they were projecting onto 2015 hasn't happened.
Hoverboard's here.
What's that?
The hoverboard's here.
The hoverboard is not here. The hoverboard needs such a specialized track to run on.
I'm so appreciative.
And that's the thing that people are talking about, is the hoverboard. But there was fusion energy, which was completely plentiful alternative energy source. There were flying cars. They had control of the weather. They had self-tying Nikes. Yeah. And they had particularly awkward fashion. So Nike's still around. They don't have the self-tying shoes yet. We don't have a hoverboard except the promises that we have a hoverboard. DeLorean is out of business, but we still have the fashion problems. So what can we take away from that? That was the fantasy projection of what 2015 could be like, and the reality is different. And what they didn't have in that movie was everybody wandering around the streets like this. Mm-hmm. And we just have that all the time now. My joke is that families, huge groups of people used to gather in the living room around a television set. It was one little tiny screen. Now we do the same thing, except everybody has their own screen. And unfortunately, we're not paying attention to each other. But when we're talking about the wing and the prayer part is more than just stopping and going into a spiritual practice. It's about the way that we're participating in our lives. It's about our attention and our intention. Because we're all very busy. Is there anybody here who doesn't feel like you're busy? You got really not too much going on? You're cool, you're calm. Most people these days feel like they got a to-do list that rolls out like the Dead Sea Scrolls. We have that busyness, and we're minding our business, and that's just going through the to-do list and making sure that, because when we have some time, what do we want to do? We want to go online and chat with our friends on Facebook or connect with other people. There's always that pressure to do something else. And there's the absence of the idea of stillness. The opposite of busyness is beingness. It's the happy people. Can we be happy regardless of what the to-do list looks like? If there's no possible way to check everything off the to-do list, if stuff is going to be late, can I still be okay? Can I be okay? Is my beingness going to be satisfactory in the situation? And the answer, it's a rhetorical question, the answer is yes. It's always a choice. The same as the choice that Tori pointed out when she was 5. Do you want to be happy? Do you want to be unhappy? We can change our circumstances, we can change our situation, but it's the way that we're engaging with it that makes such a huge difference. One of the best ways that I've found of figuring out whether or not I'm getting too much into the busyness, activity, to-do list, wing side of my life is when the shoulds begin showing up. Well, I want this to happen, so I should do this, and then I should do that, and I should do this. Like, whoa, wait a second. That's a lot of shoulds. I am now full of should, and I don't want to do that to myself. To let go of what I should do and just settle down for a moment into what it is that's going to feed, what's going to bring more of the good into my life. Because I can let go of the stuff that's not working and embrace the stuff that is working and let myself be filled and fed that way. That's going on a planetary scale at this point. Something that a bunch of people have been talking about. Remember the huge shift, the end of the age in 2012, when the world was going to end, the Mayan calendar reset? And there was all that, the talk leading up until that moment of, oh my God, the apocalypse is at hand.
All the movies that went with it.
Yeah. And there's a growing school of thought that what ended then was the age of apocalypse, where everybody is talking about gloom and doom and the end of the world, and what we have transitioned into now, and it's just beginning, it's just starting, is the age of ascension, where we're not thinking about how all of this is going to fall apart and go away. Now we're looking at how we are all going to participate in evolving into something new. And some people are really advanced in that. Some people are just starting to get it. But there's so many systems, so many parts of our world that are changing now, that are getting torn apart. I mean, the Pope was here last week, and this is the Pope who says, who's he to judge gay people? That's a pretty big change. Because when you look for somebody to judge the behavior of other people, the Pope is usually pretty close to the top of the list. That's kind of his job. So all of these things are in motion, all of these things are in play, all of these things are changing. And it's stuff that in 1989, when they wrote Back to the Future 2, they weren't thinking about for 2015. So outside in the world around us, the cars aren't flying, now they're Priuses. And there was a car actually in the beginning of the movie that looked a little bit like a Prius, but I wouldn't attach too much to it. As we're looking into our future, as we're looking into how the puzzle pieces are going to fit together, it's not what the pieces look like. It's much more important how they're fitting together, how we're fitting together with them. So if we're on a wing and a prayer, and we're choosing the wing or the prayer, and we're realizing that that phrase has only been around for a certain amount of time. Before that, the term was winging it. And by the way, this talk in a lot of ways is winging it, because what I usually love to do is I architect the talk and I figure out what it's going to be, and on Thursday I write a bunch of notes down, and on Friday I write the whole formula for how it's going to come together. And this week on Thursday, I hadn't written any of the notes, decided that my brother was going to come for a visit for the weekend. So he came in on Friday evening and he left yesterday evening. So this is not put together the way that I normally put a talk together. In a lot of ways, this is winging it for me. And winging it is interesting. It came from the theater. It came from actors who were unprepared for their lines, and they were actually studying their lines in the wings before they went on stage. That's where winging it comes from. It is amazing, the power of Google. And a couple of free minutes in bringing little tidbits of information like that. So here's the invitation to you. You could be the best prepared you've ever been in your entire life, or you could be winging it. But when you do it, and you're looking at the wing and the prayer, start with the prayer. Go into prayer first. Take that minute to actually do the prayer, to stop what you're doing, to settle into the awareness that there's one power and presence, one creative energy in the universe that does everything. And it does it through and as and in every person, through all the planets moving, through all the creatures, through all the science, through all the technology. That one, that presence is shared through everything, including me. So I now allow myself to be open to that infinite energy, to let that creative power and process move through me in a way that's bringing something new and perhaps joyous or perhaps delightful into my life. And let go of the attachment to what the wing looks like and be open to knowing that it's going to let us fly. That's the invitation for you this week. You are blessed, and I love you. Have a wonderful day.